Okay. Uh, Here, what is single processor system? Single processor system, it will be having a only one processor in the CPU. Okay. We can say it is a single CPU. Okay. It will do only one work at a time. Okay. And next we have another type of system is multi-processor system. Multi-processor system will be having multiple processors. Okay. If you have multiple processors, it executes multiple jobs, right? And cluster system, again cluster system, it is an extension for that multi-processing system where the different more than two processors will be clubbed together, all that will be connected to the network, that is clustered system. Okay, we have discussed these things in the previous class. So today we'll start with operating system structure. Okay, before going for operating system structure, we'll discuss what is multi-programming, time share, multitasking. We'll discuss and then go for operating system structure. Yes, okay. Here, multi-programming, we have discussed, right? Multi-processor. What is multi-processor? You will be having two or more processors, right? In multi-programming means here we'll be having multiple jobs. Okay, multiple processes. Job is nothing but some program, or we can say it is a some process is called multiple processes will be executed by the CPU here. Here multi programming will be done by single processor also. Okay, single processor itself can execute multiple different jobs will be executed. That is multi programming. You will be having only one processor and multiple jobs. Okay, in multi-processing system, you'll be having processors itself multiple. Okay, that is difference between, don't get confused between multi-programming and multi-processing. Okay, multi-processing, you will be having more than one processors. Okay, in multi-programming, you will be having more than one jobs. Okay, it is job is nothing but a process here, not the processor. Okay, it is more than one job. What is the need for multi-programming? It is to achieve the goal of operating systems efficiency. This multi-programming is needed. Like single user cannot keep the CPU or IO device busy at all time, right? Single user means the person will be doing only one work at a time. So that time other resources will be just kept quiet. It will be just waiting. Okay, you can't utilize all the resources at a time. Okay, to increase the efficiency, we go for multi-programming. Here, this multi-programming organizes the jobs. So CPU can always has one to execute it. Okay, CPU will be executing any other one job. Like when if a CPU is running one program, that time that program needs some input. Okay, so that time CPU should not sit idle until that program gets the input. Okay, if the program is waiting for any IO request, okay, by the time CPU will go and execute another program. Okay, here multiple programs will be stored in the main memory. Okay, from the memory, it will select the job and it will be executing it in multi-programming. Okay, so a subset of total jobs in the system will be kept in the memory. One job is selected and run via job scheduling. Okay, we'll discuss this. There are different algorithms are there to select. Okay, which program, which job to select by the CPU and executed, that will be depends on the algorithms are there. Different algorithms are there. They depends on algorithm, the program will be selected here. Okay, that is called job scheduling. Okay, when it has to wait for any input output, operating system will switch from one job to other job. Okay, CPU is running one job. That time that the job which is presently executing by the CPU, that maybe need to wait for some IO request, input or output purpose. It may be need to wait. That time CPU also not needed to wait until it completes the IO. Okay, so this operating system will switch the another job to the CPU that time, so that CPU will be kept busy all time by using multi-programming. Understood, right? Next we have time sharing. Time sharing, it is also called as multitasking. It is a logical extension of this multi-programming, which CPU switches jobs so frequently that users can interact with each job while it is running, and creating interactive computing will be created by using this multitasking. Okay, using this multitasking, we can achieve the interactive computing. While the program is running, executed by the CPU itself, users can communicate with that program. Okay, that will be facilitated by multitasking. Okay, here the response time will be less than 1 second. Okay, in time sharing, each user has at least one program executing in the memory. Okay, each user has at least one program will be executing in the memory. Here we have, here you can see here, process is nothing but program under execution is called process. Here in this chapter you just learn the definitions, that's it. We'll discuss in detail about all these terms which are bolded here. Okay, and if several jobs ready to run at the same time, okay, that time CPU will schedule that job, which job to be executed first. Okay, if many jobs are waiting in the queue to get executed, see, there is a, we use the CPU scheduling algorithms will be used to select the job to be executed by the CPU first. Okay, that is CPU scheduling. This also we'll discuss in the later chapters. Okay, next, if processes don't fit in memory, there will be a mechanism called swapping that will moves the process into the memory and moves out of the memory. Okay, depends on the requirement. Okay, which process has the higher priority, that will be moved inside the memory, so that will get executed first. Okay, which has a lower priority, which was already in the memory, that will be taken out by mechanism called swapping. Understood, right? Just know the terms here. We'll discuss in detail in the later classes. Next is virtual memory. Virtual memory allows execution of the process not completely in the memory. Okay, process will not completely execute in the memory. That will be done by the virtual memory. Okay, we'll discuss this virtual memory concept in module 4. Okay. Understood, right? Difference between multi-programming and multitasking. See here, like this, in memory, the first program which is loaded into the memory is operating system. Okay, then the jobs which need to be executed by the CPU will be loaded here. Here we have more than one job. That makes the CPU will be busy all the time. Okay, if job 1 is executed by the CPU, after some time the job 1 may need some input or output operation need to be executed. That time CPU don't need to wait until it completes the IO operation. Okay, the operating system will switch the CPU with another job. Okay, by the time it completes this job, CPU will be executing job 2 or job 3 or job 4 based on the scheduling algorithm. By using scheduling algorithm, operating system will assign the jobs to the CPU. Understood, right? This is multi-programmed system. Next, we'll see the operating system operations. Okay, here we have two operating system is having two modes of operation. Okay, and we discussed that operating system is interrupt driven hardware. We just once will refresh the things what we have discussed in the last class, SDX class. Operating system is a interrupt driven, and if it is a hardware interrupt, it will be sent as a signal to the CPU, right? And if it is a software interrupt will be the error or request that creates the exception or a trap. Software interrupt is a trap, which will be represented in this, we call it as a trap or exception. Software interrupt will be called as trap or exception. Okay. Here, example for this software interrupts are divide by zero, or request for operating system service, or like other process problems like infinite loop. If somewhere the process will go to infinite loop and processes modify each other, or processes will modify the operating system itself, that time that software interrupt will get generated. Okay, and this is what we discussed in the last class. Okay, today we'll see the operating system operations. Operating system operations are done in two modes. Okay, which is user mode and kernel mode. Okay, and this dual mode operation is to ensure proper execution of the operating system. We must be able to distinguish between execution of operating system code and user defined code. Okay, so first operating system code will be executed in the kernel mode, and user defined code will be executed in the user mode here. Okay, and here we have in operating system, we have two modes of operation. One is user mode, other one is kernel mode. This kernel mode is also called as supervisor mode, system mode, or privileged mode. Okay, this kernel mode is called as super user mode, system mode, or privileged mode. We'll be having more options here for this kernel mode. Okay, in kernel mode, what code will be executed? Operating system code will be executed. System code will be executed in the kernel mode. User defined code will be executed in the user mode. This is for the security purpose, to protecting operating system purpose. The operating system will operate on two different modes. One is user mode, other one is kernel mode. Okay, here to switch between the user mode and kernel mode, we have a mode bit. Okay, that is provided by the hardware. If mode bit is set 0 means the process will shift from user mode to kernel mode. If the mode bit is set 1, then the process will transfer from the kernel mode to the user mode. Okay, that is the mode bit which will be provided by the hardware. Understood, right? And it provides the ability to distinguish between the system running user code or kernel code. Okay, this mode of operation will distinguish that system is running the user code or kernel code. Okay, if it is system code means which will be executing in the kernel mode. If it is user defined code, it will be executed in the user code. Okay, if some instructions designed as a privileged, okay, and those privileged instructions must be executed in the kernel mode only. Okay, only that privileged mode only, those instructions should be executed, privileged instructions. Okay, system call changes the mode to kernel and return from call to resets it to user mode. Okay, when a system call comes, that will change the mode from user mode to kernel mode to system mode. Here the system call is nothing but exception or a trap. If an exception or a trap comes, it will be shifted from user mode to kernel mode. Then if there is a return instruction, if it finds, it will shift from kernel mode to the user mode. Okay. For that, we use here the mode bit. Okay. If the mode bit is set equal to 0, mode bit is equal to 0, then it will transfer the process will change the mode from user mode to kernel mode. If the mode bit is equal to 1, it will transfer the mode from kernel mode to the user mode. Understood, right? We'll see with the diagram. Yeah. Transition from user to kernel mode. Okay. Here we'll be having a timer also. Here timer will be used to prevent the infinite loop and process hogging resources. Okay. Some process will take some resource and it will be keep on using that resource. Because to use that resource, some other processes also will be waiting. Okay. Until this process leaves this resource, other process cannot access that resource. Okay. For that purpose, timer will be kept here. Okay. Set interrupt after specific period. Okay. After some time, there should be an interrupt will get generated. Okay. And operating system will decrements the counter. After that, once that it reaches 0, interrupt will get generated. When the counter reaches 0, operating system will generate a interrupt here. That is the usage of timer here. Okay, timer will be used to prevent the infinite loop and process hogging resources. Hogging resources is nothing but one process which will be using using some resource for infinite time. Okay, to avoid that, we'll be using the timer. Timer will be set. After some specific period of time, interrupt will be generated. Once interrupt will generate, process will leave that and then it will execute the interrupt. Okay. And you can see here the two modes of operating system operation. This is user mode. This is kernel mode. Okay. Here, user process is executing here. In the user code will be always executed in the user mode. Our system code will be executed in the kernel mode. Okay. You can see here the user process executing, and if it finds the system call, if any like a printf method. Printf method will be once if you see the instruction called printf, control will stop executing from there, that point to it will go to the printf method where it is stored in the memory location. There it will go and it executes complete that printf method and it will come back to the point and from there it execution completes. Okay, here the system call is just think that system call is printf. You have seen printf method is called here. That time the mode will be changed from the user mode to the kernel mode by setting an trap. Trap will get generated. Trap is nothing but the system call. It is also called as a software interrupt or exception. Okay, mode bit will be set equal to 0. Okay, mode bit will be set to 0 and the mode will be shifted from user mode to the kernel mode. Then executes the system call. After completion of execution of the system call, then it will be returned to the user mode. Okay, that time mode bit will be set equal to 1. If mode bit equal to 1, it will return to the user mode and it executes the user process again. Understood, right? This is difference between user mode and kernel mode. If it is user mode, mode bit will be equal to 1. If it is kernel mode, mode bit equal to 0. Understood, right? Any doubts here? User mode and kernel mode? Okay. Next topic is process management. Next topic is process management. Here, we just see what is process and all the terms, what the process management we just see here. But in detail, process management algorithms and all we study in the second module. Okay, this complete process management process concept we study in the module 2. Here you just learn the what are the jargons which we'll be using in this subject, that we definitions of that we'll be studying here. Okay, here first process is a program in execution is called as a process. We can also say it as process under program under execution is called as process. Okay, some job which is executing is called as process. Okay, it is a unit of work within the system. Process is nothing but some unit of work within the system, and program is a passive entity, process is an active entity. Okay, there will be no active thing as a program. When it get process become program become process, that time it will become active entity. It may give you output, it will take the output, it will use the system resources. Okay, process will use the system resources, not the program. Okay, program under execution is called as process. And process needs resources to accomplish its task, like CPU, it needs memory, it needs IO, it needs file. Okay, some initialization data using it will uses these resources to accomplish the given task. Okay, and process termination requires a reclaim of any reusable resources. And single thread process has one program counter specifying the location of the next instruction to be executed. Okay, we will discuss this single threaded or multi-threaded processes in the second module in detail. Here we just study what is that. Okay, if single threaded process, it has one program counter specifying the location of the next instruction to be executed. Okay, what will be the next instruction to get executed will be shown by the program counter. Remember that what the program counter will specify, it specifies the location of next instruction to execute. Okay, and process executes the instruction sequential order. One at a time it will be executing it. Until completion, it will be executing the instructions in the sequential order. In multi-threaded process, it has one program counter per thread. Every thread will be having one program counter. And the system has many processes in multi-threaded process. And some user or some operating system running concurrently on the one or more CPUs in multi-threaded process. Okay, concurrency by multiplexing flexing the CPUs among the processors and threads. We'll discuss this in detail in the second module. Okay, here you need to remember what is process, what is program counter, okay, what it holds, and what is single thread process, what is multiple thread. That's enough. Next, process management activities are the operating system is responsible for process management activities, okay, in connection with process management. Okay, and process management activities are creating and deleting both the user and system process. How to do this and all will be discussing in the second module. Okay, just learn here the process management activities: creating and deleting, and suspending and resuming the process, providing mechanism for the process synchronization, providing mechanism for the process communication, providing mechanism for the deadlock handling. These activities will be managed by the operating system. Okay, in detail we'll study this in the while studying in the second module. Next, coming to memory management. all data in the memory before and after processing all the instructions in the memory in order to execute, right? And memory management determines that what is in the memory when optimizing the CPU utilization and computer response to the users. Okay, that is memory management determines. And memory management activities, again, it is keep track for which part of memory are currently being used, or which part of memory will be used by whom, will be managed by the memory management. Okay, and deciding which process or data to move to and out of the memory. Okay, what process we need to add to the memory, which process we should remove from the memory also will be done by memory management only. Okay, allocating and deallocating the memory spaces as needed will be done by the operating system by using memory management concept. Okay, we'll discuss this memory management in module 3. About all these activities we'll discuss in the module 3. Here you just remember the what are the different activities. Okay, keep track of which part of memory are currently being used and by whom it is used. The memory will be used by whom also will be managed by the memory management. And deciding which process to be added to the memory, which process should be removed from the memory also will be decided by the memory management. And allocating and deallocating memory space also will be managed by the operating system by using memory management techniques. Okay, this is about memory management. Next, coming to storage management. Here, the operating system provides uniform and logical view of information storage here. Abstract physical properties to logical storage units called files. Okay, it is nothing but file system management. Files usually organized into dictionaries, right? Sorry, directories. A directory will be having directory will consist of Harshit. Harshit. Okay. A directory will be consists of number of files. Okay, we can store many number of files in the directory. Okay, and a directory can consist of number of directories also inside it. Okay, and access control on most system to determine who can access what will be managed by the uh, operating system by using file management techniques. Okay, here file management activities are creating and deleting the files and directories, and primitives to manipulate the files and directories, and mapping the files onto the secondary storage. Okay, and backup files onto stable storage media. Okay, this is about storage management. Okay, we'll discuss in tomorrow's class mass storage management and all. I thought I can complete this today, but it's time.